Hello, I recently came across this animation, which appears to be from this website, although I couldn't find the exact post. And I thought I could do this with CSS custom properties, because that's what I've been toying with this whole year. Anyway, let's get started. First of all, we're going to have the number of cubes along one edge, which we're going to make 4 at first. It's 8 actually, but let's start with 4. Then we're going to have the total number of cubes, which is this p cubed. Okay, now we're going to have a 3D assembly, and within it we're going to have a loop. And here we're going to create the cubes, which are 3D shapes. And for every cube we're going to have a number of faces, which is 6. And then again we're going to have a loop and create the actual faces. So here we're going to have the face elements, and this is it for the structure. Now let's put something on the screen with CSS. We're going to have an edge length, let's say something like 1m. And now we're going to have the 2D shape, and this is going to have a width of that L edge length, same height. Let's set the background to something. Actually, maybe I should have set something like border shadow, something like I don't know, 0 in terms of offsets, and in terms of blur, let's say something like 2 pixels red. Okay, this should do it. Now I'm going to want all divs to be absolutely positioned. So this is it, position absolute here. Okay, now let's do something else. For the 3D assembly, we're going to set top 50%, and then we're going to set left 50% as well. Then we're going to have a transform, and this is going to be something rotate X, something like this, and something similar for the Y, except 45 degrees. Okay, now for all my 3D shapes, so class contains 3D, I'm going to add transform style preserve 3D. Okay, now I'm going to set a transform here, and this is going to be a rotate 3D. And here I'm going to have the component of the vector along the x-axis, along the y-axis, 0 along the z-axis. Then I'm going to have a calc value for the actual angle, and this is going to be m, and this m by default is going to be 1. Okay, so this should do it. Now the next thing, here I'm going to have translate along the z-axis, and this is going to be by half the edge length. So yeah, next I'm going to have nth child n plus 5. Here I'm going to change the axis. So first of all, this I is going to be 0, and j is going to be calc 1 minus I. Okay, so here I'm going to change I to 1, and this makes j 0, and here I'm going to have a loop for I from 0 to 6, because I have 6 faces. And if I is different from 1 or 4, yeah, okay, so this means if this is different from 1, then I'm going to have nth child I plus 1, and I'm going to set m to, so if I is smaller than 4, it's going to be I, otherwise it's going to be minus 1. So yeah, this gives me a nice cube there. let's get rid of this for now. Okay, now the next thing that I'm going to do is take care of the cube elements. So on the 3D shape here, this is going to be transform is going to be a position initially, and this position is going to be translate 3D, and is going to have an X component, a Y component, and a Z component. Okay. So now let's get back here. We're going to have a number of cubes along an edge. This is going to be 4, just like when we computed the structure. And we're also going to compute another constant value, which is half of this p minus 1. And we're also going to compute the distance between the centers of 2 consecutive cubes, which is going to be, let's say, 1.25 times the edge length, something like this. And here we're going to compute the x as a calc value. And here I'm going to have an I, which is 0 by default. And this is going to be minus this q here, and all multiplied with this d here. And now I'm just going to copy paste this twice and just change things for the other directions. So here I'm going to have j, here I'm going to have k, this is going to be z. Okay, now here I'm going to have a loop for I from 0 to p, and here I'm going to have if I greater than 0, then I'm going to have nth child n plus p times p plus 1, and here I'm going to set I to this I value. Now I'm going to do something pretty similar. Okay, something's wrong. Oh, times I. Yeah, it needs to depend on I. Okay. This is better. Now this is going to be, here I'm going to have p here, and this is going to be not I but k. And now I have a nice plane right there. So one more thing I'm going to want to do. So on the body here, I'm going to set a hue, and this is going to be something like 185. I'm going to set a saturation, which is going to be, I don't know, something like 32%. That should do it. Okay, and then I'm going to set a lightness, something like 45%. So here I'm going to set a background. Background HSL and sadly this is not going to work due to a SAS bug, so I need to put them within calc. Okay, so now it works, and I can get rid of that box shadow soon. So I'm going to keep this hue, and this saturation is going to be minus A times this is going to be 0 by default, A times let's say something like 5%, and this L is going to be minus B, which by default is also going to be 0 times something like 8%. That should do it. Okay, so that should work, I'm thinking. Okay, so now not only am I going to set this I here, but I'm also going to set an A of the saturation is going to be higher, so that's going to be 1, and my B is going to be -1 for the lightness. Let's get rid of this box shadow. And something else I'm going to do here is nth child even, let's say. I'm going to set A to -1 and B to 1. So yeah, this kind of does it. So I'm seeing something there. Okay, that should work. Let's arrange this in a nicer manner or something. Okay, so now that I'm seeing this, I can collapse this again, and here I'm going to have another loop. So for J from 0 to P, and here I'm going to compute a minimum, and this one is going to be P times I plus P times J plus 1. Then I'm going to have a maximum, which is min plus P minus 1. So I think this is it. And now here I'm going to have nth child n plus the minimum, and then I'm going to have nth child minus n plus the maximum. Okay, and one thing I'm going to do here before anything else, I'm going to do something like this. Going to have a loop here for I from 0 to P. I'm going to have J I. Actually, I don't need to go from 0, and here I'm going to set J to I. So I don't need to go from 0, I can go from 1. Okay, and here I'm going to set extend J. Okay, so yeah, this kind of does it. So this gives me the 3D structure. Now for the animation, I'm going to do something like this. I'm going to have an animation here. So animation, here I'm going to have, let me think. First of all, let's set the animation. Animation, I'm going to use a T, animation duration. I'm going to have a custom function here, a custom timing function. Okay, and this is going to be to have an x0 here, 0, and then I'm going to have an x1 and a 1 here. Okay, then I'm going to have a delay. Infinite, alternate. Okay, so this should do it. Now, I can collapse all this stuff. Here I'm going to compute something else. I'm going to compute an n, which is that p cubed. So now I'm going to have another loop here. I from 0 to n. So here I'm going to have if random 80 is greater than, I don't know, 21, something like this, then I'm going to set some stuff. Nth child I plus 1. So first of all, I'm going to set an x0, and this one is going to be random 100 times, something like this. And I'm going to have the same for x1. Then for this duration, I'm going to have 0.7 seconds plus random 200 times. This should do it. Let's put 160. As for the delay, this one is going to be random. Oh, this is going to need to be a calc. Times a random 100, and this is going to need to be interpolated. Times minus. So this should do it. Now, next thing I'm going to want to do is set some keyframes here. So keyframes, and this is going to go to and here I'm going to use a function, and okay, so now let's create this function. return scale 3D. Now here I'm going to use so here I'm also going to set these values. So f0 is going to be 0.65 plus 0.35. Actually, and f1 is going to be just pretty much this. Now let's make this animation duration and let's make this x1. Oops, sorry, 0.5. Actually, I think I can make this animation duration even shorter. And let's make this 31. Okay, now let's increase this from 4 to 8. Let's go here as well and increase it from 4 to 8. Now let's go down again. Make this 21 again. Okay, and one more thing here. Let's make opacity 0.7, something like this. Actually, that might be too much. Box shadow. This is also inset. Let's see. Okay, this is starting to look pretty good actually. I think we can collapse this. Let's go back up. Make this 16 actually. No, smaller than 16. Okay, this is starting to look better, actually. Okay, well, this is pretty much it. Like, I can add a few more styles on the background, for example, on the body, sorry. So I can do something like background, HSL, calc, okay, get out of the calc, calc, over 4, then I'm going to do something like calc, something like this. Actually do something like 5. Okay, so yeah, this is pretty much it. I don't think I'll be tweaking this thing any further. I think this looks nice enough. It's kind of laggy. It's probably not going to be as laggy once I stop the recording. So yeah, this is it. You're going to find a link to the finished CodePen demo in the description below. And if you have any questions or requests for future videos, you can drop them in the comments or just send them on Twitter. I hope you've enjoyed this video, and if you have and you want me to be able to do more stuff like this in the future, please consider supporting my work in one of the ways explained in the description below. With a donation, by getting me something off my Amazon wishlist, or at least by sharing this to show the world what can be done with CSS these days. In any event, thanks for watching.